Hello and welcome. This is Inform New Hampshire. My name is Dean, and this is Richie, my co-host, to my right. And we are broadcasting live on Tuesday at 5 p.m. every Tuesday. We have a YouTube channel called Inform New Hampshire, which you can subscribe to and like if you will. And we also have a Facebook group called Inform New Hampshire. Richie and I have been doing this for about a year and a half, and we are concerned with the direction of our country. And we're very concerned with the hidden information that is kept from you, and so it's our hope to inform people of some of the important information that won't be found in the mainstream media and that is available basically if you search for it, but it is sometimes difficult to find and difficult to interpret sometimes as well. So before we start, we just want to mention our friend Jerry DeLamus, who is still incarcerated. The only hope at this point for preventing him from having to serve his term would be a pardon by the president, which is not out of the question, given that the entire charade of the Bundy Ranch is a disgrace, and it really demonstrates how the legal system is completely out of control, does not follow the law of the land. They simply follow their own rules and regulations and make them up as they go. And they use the Admiralty court jurisdiction to do it, and they do it against against the common law and the founding principles of our country. So, Richie, you want to say something about that?
Yes. I'm going to continue to ask people to contribute to Jerry DeLamus's legal aid fund for him and Sue. I'm sure they'll both appreciate it. And you can find that on the internet at freejerrydelemus.com. It's JERRYDELEMUS.com. And I just got one correction from what Dean said. It looks as if the only hope for Jerry might be a pardon or an honest judge who will see what has happened to Jerry and get involved with that, because the courts are pretty much doing what they want to do anyway. And I know there's honest judges out there, I hope. That leads me to, oh, and by the way, keep Jerry and Sue in your prayers too. I know that they want the prayers.
What's their website address?
freejerrydelemus.com.
If you want to make a contribution to Susan DeLamus and to Jerry, you can do so at that address, and we hope that some of you will reach out and make a small donation to them so that they can make it through the difficult times.
I also wanted to say, in talking with the, or talking about rather judges, I wanted to say we are going to talk about juries today, and one of the things that I was reading, I don't know if Dean was able to catch up on the computer the last few minutes while we were waiting, but it said that a judge, and I believe she was located in Arizona, is going to deny or try to stop the president's pardon of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, which I find just a little on the bizarre side. I didn't catch your name. Both me and Dean were very busy today doing things, and I just didn't get a chance to read the whole article. But when I read at least the headlines from it, I almost couldn't believe what I was reading. And I want to say this, when I was a kid growing up, I used to hold judges in high regard. I thought they were very honorable men. You know, go to law school, get a degree, work hard, the old work ethic that we all grew up with, and they became honorable men. What I'm finding out now is that, in particular, I'm talking about this particular judge, but also Judge Adolph Navarro from Nevada. I'm wondering what type of a hold somebody had over them when they appointed him to the judgeship, because they're doing things that have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with justice and everything to do with corruption. So it makes you wonder where these people are coming from. We used to have honorable judges, or at least, like I said, I thought we did, but maybe not. I just wanted to mention one other thing before we get going on the jury thing. The State Representative Dick Marple let us know that today, September 5th, is Jury Rights Day in America. And he also notified us about this organization in Helena, Montana. It's the Fully Informed Jury Association, FIJA, And they were kind enough to send us a lot of flyers. I think there was about 250, 300 flyers in a box, free of charge, for us to hand out. We were down at the Hillsborough County Superior Courthouse today doing that. And although we have some left over, I can assure the Fully Informed Jury Association that we will get them all out over the state, or I will, if I have to personally, but they will be distributed. One of the things that I wanted to make mention of, and I said something to people today, it's something in passing, because you can't sit there, well, it's difficult to sit there and talk to people at length when you're on the sidewalk handing out literature, but the jury is the most powerful weapon in the legal system today. Their decision can't be overturned by anybody. Now, I know that they're trying to do that, or Adolph Navarro is attempting to do that out in Nevada, and the president should be removing her because she's not acting in good behavior as the law says she should. And maybe that'll happen. You know, things don't happen very quickly in government. I know that. I used to work for government. But anyway, I wanted to make mention of that. If you don't know the jury system, please try to find out. The Fully Informed Jury Association is a great source. National Liberty Alliance is another great source. This civics course talks about the jury system, both the petit and the grand jury. So these are two avenues you can take to find out about it. And I've actually left some flyers here in the studio in Manchester on Elm Street, 1045 Elm Street on the 4th floor. I hope they don't mind me saying that, but if you want them, I put them up here on the table in the waiting room. So they will be all over the place. I'm going to start spreading them around. It's the most important weapon we have in the legal system to fight the fight against the corruption that's taken place. So you should get informed with that. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dean.
All right, just real quick regarding jury rights, I just wanted to show this little handbook, which is about the size of a pocket constitution, and it's titled Citizens Rule Book. You'll find this on Alex Jones' show. Anytime you order something from Inform New Hampshire at their store, they will send you one of these free. But if you wanted to get you can order these from the InfoWars site, and you could also call in and order it at toll-free number 888-253-3139. They title their InfoWars store the Free Speech Systems. But this is super handy. This is a great little book. It's been around a long time, and just for starters, I'm going to read you a quick...
Oh, is that the Juror's Handbook or the Citizen's Handbook?
It's the Citizen's Handbook.
Okay.
Yep. I'm going to read you a quick excerpt from here, assuming I can find it. All right. All right, as a juror in a trial setting, when it comes to your individual vote of innocent or guilty, you truly are answerable only to God Almighty. The First Amendment to the Constitution was born out of this great concept. However, judges of today refuse to inform jurors of their rights. The Minneapolis Star and Tribune, in a newspaper article appearing in its November 30th, 1984 edition, entitled "What Judges Don't Tell the Juries," stated, "At the time of adoption of the Constitution, the jury's role as defense against political oppression was unquestioned in American jurisprudence. This nation survived until the 1950s, when prosecutions under the Fugitive Slave Act were largely unsuccessful because juries refused to convict. Then judges began to erode the institution of free juries, leading to the absurd compromise that is the current state of the law. While our courts uniformly state juries have the power to return a verdict of not guilty, whatever the facts, they routinely tell the jurors the opposite. Further, the courts will not allow the defendants or their counsel to inform the jurors of their true power. A lawyer who made Hamilton's argument would face professional discipline and charges of contempt of court. By what logic should jurors have the power to acquit a defendant but no right to know about that power? The court decisions that have suppressed the notion of jury nullification cannot resolve this paradox. More than logic has suffered. As a as originally conceived, juries were to be the kind of safe valve as a way to soften the bureaucratic rigidity of the judicial system by introducing the common sense of the community. If they are to function effectively as the conscience of the community, jurors must be told that they have the power and the right to say no to a prosecution in order to achieve a greater good. To cut jurors off from this information is to undermine one of the most important institutions. Perhaps the community should educate itself. Then citizens called for jury duty could tell the judges a needed lesson in civics. So that makes a good point. Number one is that we are not informed. We, the citizenry, are just not informed. And so as a jury, when you're called to jury duty, and this is exactly why you won't see Richie and I called to jury duty, and I never have been because I've been a conservative my whole life, but we have the power as jurors to strike down the law, to say in a case where you see that if you see that the person is guilty of the crime that they're saying they committed, however you see that the law is repugnant to the Constitution and that nobody was injured, you have the right as jurors to strike down the law, and you should, because that's an unjust law. It's any law that's repugnant to the Constitution is unjust. So,
No, the reason that you should strike it down is simply the law belongs to you. It doesn't belong to the government. And what I mean by that is if you go out and you kill somebody, the people want to be protected from you. The government's job is to make sure that happens, but it's your law. And the reason that you're tried by a jury of your peers is so nobody rules over you. There is no one man. That guy in the black robe doesn't sit in judgment of you and say, well, you got the death penalty. No, that's not how it works. That would be called slavery, as a matter of fact. One man owns you, and he determines your fate. It actually says no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. That means a trial by jury. And the only other, well, not the only, but one of the things I wanted to mention about that is that a trial by jury and a jury trial are not the same thing. A trial by jury is what's guaranteed to you under the constitutions, both state and federal, and it's of a jury of your peers. A jury trial, which is what you have now, is a trial by the government. They hand you a stack of papers, from what I understand. I haven't been on a jury since the 80s, I believe. They give you a stack of papers to fill out. It's like they want to, not sure the word I'm looking for here. They want to build or make up a psychological profile on you. They ask you 50 questions or 100 questions, whatever it is in there. They're not supposed to be asking you. That's called jury tampering for them to do that. You're supposed to be tried by a jury of your peers. And if you doubt what I'm saying, there's a 1796 case, Cruden versus Neal, that deals with the jury trial. It says just that. You're supposed to be tried by your neighbors. Even if you committed murder, your neighbors are supposed to try you. If they want to put you back in their neighborhood, they're the ones that are at risk.
Good?
Yes.
All right, let's do a couple, let's just go over some of these jury rights. The jury has the right to judge both the law as well as the fact in controversy. That's John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, 1789. The jury has the right to determine both the law and the facts. Samuel Chase, U.S. Supreme Court Justice, 1796, signer of the unanimous declaration. The jury has the power to bring a verdict in teeth of both law and fact. Oliver Wendell Holmes. The law itself is on trial quite as much as the cause which is to be decided. Harlan Stone, 12th Chief Justice. The pages of history shine on instances of the jury's exercise of its prerogative to disregard instructions of the judge. That's U.S. versus Daugherty. So there you are. You have plenty of precedents, U.S. Supreme Court precedents for, and I like this third one the best, the law itself is on trial quite as much as the cause which is to be decided. Because as we all know, unchecked, governments and government representatives will create laws to control behavior and control people. And we are at the pinnacle of the perversion of law in this country. And especially since they are, through fraud, using Admiralty law, Admiralty jurisdiction, to impose penalties on us, including incarceration and fines and fees, with statutes and codes which are written for bureaucrats and government employees, not for men and women, we the people. Those statutes and codes do not apply to us, and there are plenty of precedents for that in the U.S. Supreme Court as well, and yet we are so ignorant and checked out of the system. We are not managing our government, and our government has completely overwhelmed us with constant revenue extraction through any means they see fit, which has nothing to do with law and has everything to do with tyranny, slavery. That's basically what we have. So anything
What's
on
that statement from Jefferson? When the government when the people, trying to get this right. When the government fear the people, you have liberty. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny.
Yep.
That's very, very true. And one of the other things I wanted to say about John Marshall, who was the Chief Justice back in the early 1800s, all these people, like John Jay, that Dean mentioned, the quotes from them. I don't have a quote from John Marshall, but what he did say was the decision of this court, meaning a court of record, the jury, is as conclusive on this court as it is on the rest of the world, on all of the world, meaning nobody overturns the decision of a jury, whether it be petite or grand, neither one. Although the grand jury is in a different situation. But that's the kind of power you have. And if you don't know that, you're really missing the boat. It has more authority, more power than the Supreme Court of the United States. They can't overturn it. You can look that up in the law and find out for yourself. It's just the way it is. As a matter of fact, the Supreme Court, I'll say theoretically because of the way the system works today, but the Supreme Court can be overturned by the people. Supreme Court does not make law. They render an opinion on a case. And if that case violates the law, it can be overturned by the people. In theory. In practicality, it should be that way. But because of the perverted nature of our system, that's not happening. There again, it's our ignorance. It really is our ignorance. Go ahead, Dean.
So yeah, the right of the jury to nullify law was around long before the United States Constitution, and it actually was started back at the Magna Carta in 1215. But the legal system in the United States was born out of history in Judeo-Christian religions, and of course you have the Ten Commandments, which is a founding principles of law. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Bear false witness. So those are the founding principles in Christianity. Now let me just give you this Communist Manifesto because it's amazing. All of your rights are connected to property rights, because property means you own yourself. That's the beginning and the foundation of property rights, is that you own your own body, you own yourself, and anything that you personally create, you own it because you created it, and no one else has a claim to it or a right to it. And you have the right to live your life unmolested in that way. And that's just a fundamental foundational right given to you, unalienable right given to you by God. And that is the way this country is founded and set up, and it is done so in writing.
Just one thing,
Go ahead.
Dean, it ties into what you're saying. The function of government, the primary function of government, is to protect its people and their property. And by property, I mean your life is your property. Your thoughts are your property. So every time a bureaucrat tells you shut up, He's not protecting your property. He's infringing upon your rights. So it's very important to know that. Go ahead, I'm
The
sorry.
Communist Manifesto represents a misguided philosophy which teaches the citizenry to give up their rights for the sake of the common good. So here, the number one on the list of the Communist Manifesto is abolition of private property. So in a communistic society, that's the number one thing you got to do is give up your private property, which means what? You give up ownership of your body, and you give up ownership of your children's body. Therefore, somebody else owns you and your children and everyone else. And who is that owns you? Well, it's the state. It's the bureaucrats at the state level who can just make up any laws or make up any dictates that they want regarding your use of your body and how you manage it, where you put it, and frankly, what you say. And at this point, they're diving into what you think. In other words, hate crimes are basically crimes where they charge you more severe penalties based on the thoughts that they think you might have had in the process of committing a crime.
Can I demonstrate to people?
Please do, yeah.
I want to tell people out there, you might have to play this over again on YouTube, but please do it and pass this along. Get a hold of your iPhone or a dictionary, whichever one is easiest for you to get a hold of, and go to Google. When you get to Google, type in etymology, etymology. Etymology is the study of words. Once you get to etymology, type in the word person, P-E-R-S-O-N, person. And it'll give you a definition of person. In the very top one will say human being. I just recently asked somebody in my family, I said, what is a person? They said, a human being. I said, very good, that's what it says. Underneath it, it says, in legal use, a corporation. Now, most of my entire life, I didn't know what the heck. A person is a corporation? Yep. In our court system, in our corrupt court system, it is. And when you take your driver's license out of your pocket, and especially even you bureaucrats out there, you government employees, cops, take your license out, take a look at it. Your name appears in all capital letters. That's called capitis diminutio maxima. It's obviously a Latin term, but it's a diminishment in status. You are being diminished from a person, a human being, to a corporation. And that's what you are. Corporations have no rights. This is in the eyes of the government, not me. And as stupid as you think this is what's happening to all of us. Everyone in America. No, there's no exception. Look at your children's birth certificate. It's in all capital letters. They're born, they're babies, haven't done anything to anybody, and they're a corporation in the eyes of a government. They're a cash cow. That's all people are. I don't know what else to say to convince you of it, but at least go through those motions. Look up the word person, take your driver's license or ID out, and look at it. It's in all caps. Look at your mail when you get it, from credit card companies, banks, or the government. All capital letters, because you're a corporation. Go ahead, Dan, I'm sorry.
That means you have to have a board meeting every year. How's that? All right,
Yeah.
the right of the people to be secure in their persons. All right, this is the question of like, who owns your body? The right of the people to be secure in their persons against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. That's a quote from the Constitution, folks.
Fourth Amendment.
Yep. The human right that controls all other rights is the absolute ownership and management of one's own body. Without complete ownership of your body, you cannot hold any rights. Throughout history, kings and dictators claim ownership of everyone's body as a way to control all peoples and their actions. The U.S. Constitution reversed that flawed form of government, but now government again claims the power of kings, seizing ownership of your body. Their actions, rather than their lies, prove that the government holds no compassion or respect for you. To government, your body is merely a working device it owns to be taxed. This is important because when you read this, you just have to remember that the government has created a straw man using your birth certificate, your social security number, and as Richie was saying, in the all caps name, they created that corporation, and it's obfuscated from view, so to speak. So when you get called into a courtroom for, let's say, a traffic violation, or for something erroneous, let's just say a traffic violation, the courtroom is actually engaging your corporation. They're not actually dealing with you, the person. And in fact, the courtroom considers you to be a dead vessel at sea, and incompetent to stand trial. So who are they dealing with? They're dealing with the corporation, the straw man. Now that corporation just happens to have some very large assets attached to it over at the Treasury. And the judges know this, and the judges are enjoying a huge revenue stream from simple little things like a violation of a traffic law, or let's say drinking alcohol in public, or somebody having a small amount of marijuana on them, or anything that you read in your statutes and codes. And so every time they draw you into the courtroom, they're drawing money, assets from your accounts over at the Treasury, in addition to fining you money out of your wallet and your bank account. So it's a racketeering scheme, and it's been going on for a long time. It is a vicious and tyrannical system that dominates you, we the people, all across the country, controls nearly everything we do at this point, or at least has access to control us anytime they decide to focus on you. If you've done something to piss someone off, they have so many laws, statutes, and codes that they can really be aggressive with you anytime they want, if they decide that you're a menace to them or to their system or to somebody who is in their system, and they can certainly lash back at you at any time.
You raised an excellent point with the traffic ticket. I'd like to follow up on that for a minute.
Please.
The Constitution says that you being Congress, the government, will pass no bill of attainder or ex post facto law. A bill of attainder is simply a legislative act that deprives people of due process. And I spoke with a state representative here in New Hampshire about that issue, and he says, well, you can go to court for it. The Constitution doesn't say Congress will pass a bill of attainder and you can go fight for it. It says Congress will not pass any bill of attainders. Well, when you get a traffic ticket from a cop, that's a bill of attainder. And I'll explain to you why it is. The cop is saying to you, here's your ticket for $100 or whatever the amount is. You can pay it or you can go to court and fight it. Okay, well, paying it means you're guilty. There's no due process. Due process means the process outlined in the Constitution, which means a trial by jury. In suits at common law where the value in controversy exceeds $20, well, a $100 ticket does exceed $20. The right of a trial by jury is preserved. Well, you go down to the traffic court and you say, well, I'm going to fight this. You walk into the courtroom, and guess what? There's no jury box. So how can you have a trial by jury if there is no jury box? Because that court is not a court of record, a common law court. So you're being deprived of your rights under the law. Under the law. And the government is supporting that. I got a legislature saying, well, you can go to court. I've been there and I fought it. Well, I'm not hiring you as a legislature to make me go to court needlessly when I don't have to. Isn't that a little senseless? I think so. My time's more valuable than me spending it in a courtroom trying to fight a bill of attainder that's unconstitutional against the law. And I wanted to point that out. You should all be bringing it down to court, saying it's a bill of attainder, or in other words, a writ of assistance. They're both unconstitutional.
Liberty exists only among reasoning people who are tolerant of human diversity. Tyranny thrives on intolerance. Conscientious jurors defend liberty when they refuse to convict fellow citizens maliciously accused of crimes.
Now, excuse me, but when you say intolerance, you mean like Charlottesville and situations like that, where we can't accept another person's opinion we have to hit them with a baseball bat and do stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, if somebody
Yeah.
disagrees with you and
Yeah.
it somehow offends you, then you have the right to
So
go
we mu-
smack them or
We might be heading in that direction.
beat them down.
Yeah.
Well, what Richie's referring to, of course, is the Charlottesville Uprising, so to speak. But there were some white nationalists who got together and had a permit to have a peaceful protest at a park in Charlottesville. And what happened was the Antifa folks, who are paid mercenaries. Oh my gosh, that reminds me. I gotta read this in a little bit. Paid mercenaries to show up at that park and to violently attack the white supremacists or the white nationalists. Now, you can agree or disagree with anything on the platform of a white nationalist, or I'm not even sure what all their platform is. Not really concerned about it. However, Antifa thought it was okay to go down there and start violent action against the peaceful protesters that were there on permit. So the interesting part about that, which we explained a couple weeks ago, was that the police were ordered to stand down, and what they did was they cordoned off the area where the white nationalists were coming to have a protest. And as soon as they all got there, they shut it down, declared an emergency, and then they pushed all of those white nationalists out into the Antifa people, where the violence started to erupt, and then the police simply stood down and didn't do anything about it and allowed it to happen. So, at what level do you think the orders came from that said, let's get these guys fighting with each other? What do you call that? You call that a civil war. So, only recently, and this is good news, folks, only recently within the last week, Homeland Security and the Department of Homeland Security, and I forget who else, the FBI, I think, finally classified the Antifa people as, what was it, Richie?
Terrorists.
Terrorists and,
Domestic terrorists.
yeah, domestic terrorists, I believe, which now allows them to go after these people and arrest them, and a number of arrests have taken place now. But I don't know all the details, and unfortunately, there are probably many of them still running around. But I want to read you something here because we're on the subject.
Yeah, while you're digging that up, I just want to say crime is crime, and we shouldn't look for color, creed, anything like that. I don't care who commits the crime. It's criminal behavior. It's wrong. No one should do it. And when we start picking people apart, well, you're black, you're white, you're this, you're that, I mean, it just divides us. It divides us. You have the right to be what you want to be. If you're committing no crime, knock yourself out.
All right, so here it is, A Word to the Wise by Jeffrey B. Higginbotham, Major General, U.S. Marine Corps, retired. If you are paid $25 an hour to show up at a rally to counter the other party using physical force and violence, you are not a counter-protester. You are a mercenary. There is no need for further debate on this. You were paid to attack someone you don't know for reasons that you couldn't care enough about to go there for free. You did your job and collected your check and your reimbursement of expenses. You are a mercenary, not a patriot, not a social justice warrior, not a defender of freedom or liberty, not an upholder of truth or justice. None of those things you claim to be. You are a mercenary. And mercenaries are not lawful combatants and deserve whatever comes their way at the hands of the people they are attacking. You have no First Amendment rights when you are a mercenary. Doesn't matter what side you're on. Doesn't matter what cause you're showing up to dispute. If you can't express yourself peacefully through diplomatic means, then you better be prepared to meet your maker at the hands of someone who is only barely keeping their own violent tendencies at bay through a massive exercise of self-control. I know it sounds romantic to attend these rallies and get crap started with the other side. And when you're young and passionate, it's really easy to get whipped up into a frenzy of raw emotion. There is a reason why young people are preferred when it comes to warfare. They are easy to manipulate and control and set off. But I'm telling you all this right now. You've got no idea what road you are starting down. Romance and idealism wears off really fast when you're laying in a pool of your own blood, trying to stuff your intestines back into your torn abdomen. I've been lucky enough to go 42 years without having to put the skills I've learned in the Marines to use. I continue to train and keep those skills up to date because I see the madness that is happening all across our country. I don't train to attack others like you do. I train to defend others from you. I am not alone either. There are thousands of men and women in this country who have seen war and death and don't want any more to do with it. They want to live in peace. They want to forget the things they've had to do in the service of their country. They want to raise their kids and have family barbecues and build tree houses and soapbox derby cars and have tea parties. They don't want this crap that you're selling. You have the extremist left and the extremist right that are doing their best to get something started, to force us into civil war. Even in the 1860s, the violence between the North and South was nowhere near what we see today. Nowhere. Not even close. And yet, we still had a war of ideology that consumed hundreds of thousands of lives. All you young and naive kids on both sides of this equation who think that having a civil war will advance your agenda or restore your vision of what you think America is, just remember this. Those of us older generations aren't having any of this crap. And if you jump off, you better be prepared to deal with us. We don't care what color you're wearing or what sign you're holding. If you come after us, our friends, our family, our co-workers, our neighbors, etc., we will kill you. Very politely said. So remember that when you're thinking that it's just left versus right or liberal versus conservative or commie versus fascist, we are the variable you're not considering. That silent majority that you pretend does not exist is getting really sick and tired of your crap. I don't know, he has a more specific word for that, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. No, people are getting pissed off, and people are, like myself and Dean have said many a times, we're angry, but we're trying to focus our anger in a positive direction. The last thing we want to see is violence. Violence doesn't solve anything, and as a product of somebody who grew up in Boston during the busing, the forced busing, telling people you got to go to this school and this one can go to this school because that school sucks, so you should be punished and go to that school. Why don't you fix the school that has the problem and make them all better? And then you don't have to do that. No, but not these nitwits. They want to say, we don't want to fix the problem, so we'll just send these people over there, take these ones over. It didn't work. It didn't work. And all it did was create racial tensions. And the government was behind it all. Matter of fact, the guy's name was, get a load of this, talking about juries and courts, Judge Garrity in Boston is the one who did it. He was behind it all. He orchestrated the whole thing. Anyway, it's a shame. We as Americans got to come together. We have to know the law because it belongs to us. And if we don't do that, we're making a big mistake. The jury is the most powerful weapon in the legal system. You have to know that. Doesn't do me any good to know it. So study it. Find out that information. Back to you, Dean.
Thank you, sir. The last peaceful defense of our liberties is the jury. Writers of the Constitution understand that power always corrupts. The people must retain, understand, and use all the processes to defend themselves from the greatest threat to liberty, which is what? Yes, it's our own government. Informed grand jurors and trial jurors can protect you from bad government laws. There are countless inferior laws based on government's assumed ownership of our bodies that contradict the superior laws of our Constitution and common law. That's a really good point, because in a not so specific way, they're pointing out that there are a ton of statutes and codes that are repugnant to the Constitution, and they're not founded in common law. Common law being the law of the land. They're actually they're government codes and whatever.
Yeah, just let me say this, Dean.
Yeah.
When Dean says it's the law of the land, he means the land jurisdiction. All right? The other one is Admiralty jurisdiction, which is the international law of the sea. It's not applicable to us unless we hold an international contract. The government thinks you do, but you don't.
Let's see. With all the bad laws on the books, it is only a matter of time before you, your family, or your friends are accused of some crime. Your last peaceful line of defense is informed jurors who refuse to convict under bad laws based on government's assumed ownership of your body. You hold all rights to completely own and be responsible for your body. Corrupt prosecutors and judges are common. Anyone can easily go through the process to become a lawyer or a judge. The U.S. is overrun by them. They are common people who hold no more intelligence or reasoning ability than any other common person, and often less because of their egos and craving for more power. The duty and design of the citizen jury is to apply reasoning devoid of any craving for power. Lawyers and judges literally cannot understand the concept, even if they read these words, which is why wise people instituted the citizen's jury system. Jurors hold the authority to render a verdict against the demands of power-hungry lawyers and judges. And it's so pertinent and so important, because how often have you heard of people serving time and then finding out later on that they were exonerated, and it turns out that really the system was just eager to find a kill, find a win, to have another feather in their cap because they won that, they finally closed that case or something like that. And that's more often than not, these people thrive on that type of incentive rather than, it's a career incentive to like win a case, and it doesn't matter about the person they're prosecuting. It just comes down to, I got to win, I got to win, I got to win. And in the end, it has nothing to do with justice and nothing to do with the liberty of that person. It has everything to do with their self-fulfilling whatever.
Well, part of what you're talking about, Dean, is the Bundy situation out in Nevada. The government wants these people persecuted because they dared stand up against the tyrannical government, and these people did so peacefully. I don't care if they had cannons strapped on their back. The supreme law of the land says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It means just that. Don't step on it. But the government feels as though it can, because it can tread on your rights. You're a person, a corporation, not a person, a human being. They've created that for you. You don't even know that. The whole argument with this thing is simply that, and I lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
I apologize.
Today, your understanding of the authority for juror nullification is critically important due to increasing numbers of fear-based laws. These laws are supported by both political parties, both politically appointed government judges and prosecutors, and by United Nations leadership. Jurors can nullify bad laws by refusing to convict people being tried under those laws. When jurors refuse to convict, legislators and prosecutors know the law is not supported by the community. Acquittals and hung juries are politically embarrassing to legislators, power-craving prosecutors, bureaucrats, and most judges. It costs many lives to establish a jury system designed to protect our individual rights. One informed person on each jury can regain these rights. How critical is that? It only takes one human being to know their rights on a jury and prevent these egregious violations of our overreaching of our government and violating our fundamental rights. How's that?
Well, for people watching the Bundy situation out there, if things had been different, Jerry DeLemus wouldn't be sitting in jail for 87 months for doing nothing. He didn't hurt anybody, he didn't kill anybody. There was no victim. If there is no victim, there is no crime. That's common law. And poor Greg Burleson, and I heard that Greg said a lot of things, but I didn't know that talking, even making threats, was a crime. I don't know of that anywhere in the law. He did nothing to harm anybody, and he got 68 years in prison. 68 years. I would have never, if I was on a jury, I would have never convicted him. Not for what he did. He'd be walking free today.
So today is National Jury Rights Day. Richie and I organized an event to go out to the Hillsborough County Superior Court in Manchester and hand out information to people, different information pamphlets. And I want to say thank you to and acknowledge the what's the name?
Fully Informed Jury Association.
Fully Informed Jury Association, and they're located in Helena, Montana. And if you want to reach out to them, it's fija.org. You can also phone them at 1-800-TEL-JURY, TELJURY. That phone number would be whatever it is. The other numbers don't match up the 800 number. All right, so...
Well, they supplied us with the handout information free of charge, which is very nice of them, so we thank them for that.
Yep, and we do have leftovers, so we will continue to assist in informing our juries whenever we attend any court sessions, which we do from time to time. So moving on maybe to some current affairs, unless you want to wrap it up on the jury situation.
No, the only thing I want to say about the jury situation is, like I said before, go to the Fully Informed Jury Association or the National Liberty Alliance. Both of those have incredible information on the jury. We need to know this as Americans, and we won't be tangled up. Any bureaucrat that wants to persecute somebody like that's happening in the Bundy situation, a fully informed jury is going to acquit these people and let them go. They did nothing wrong. Regardless of what the government wants, the government, they're our servants. They're our public servants. They work for us, not the other way around, although they think it's the other way around.
Last week we mentioned that the Granite State 3%ers would be making a trip down to Houston with supplies, which they did a year ago for the victims of the flooding in Louisiana. And so they're organizing again this year to take truckloads of supplies down to the people in the Houston area who have been devastated by this weather warfare modification called the Hurricane Harvey. So there are a number of drop-off locations where you can make contributions of supplies and things. I think there are roughly 14 of them in New Hampshire. I only have one of them right now, so I'm going to give you that location. Iggy Falcone owns his company called Faltech, and it's at 726 East Industrial Park Drive, Manchester, New Hampshire, 03109-5600. You could even mail something if you want to be supportive. The trip will be, I believe, the first weekend of October, maybe the second weekend of October, and I'll be able to update you more on that next week, as well as update you on some of the additional drop-off locations.
Can I just make a point in reference to that, Dean? Yeah. I know these guys, Iggy and Stevie D, and other people that are involved in it. One of the things you got to concern yourself with is they don't take anything for themselves out of this. They're spending their time and effort to take this down there, as opposed to some other organizations. You know, they pay their CEO and their administrative staff thousands upon thousands of dollars. This is going down there to Texas. So please consider that.
Yeah, it's 100% volunteer, and most of these people are incurring huge expenses to make this contribution themselves. So either time out of their life to drive down there, or providing supplies themselves, donating money for gas, things like that. So
Eating on the road, yeah.
It's all grassroots, and it's just good people doing the right thing for their fellow humans and for we the people. Shoot, I wanted to say one other thing on that, and the Red Cross. Let me just be a little bit controversial here. The Red Cross is a criminal organization, and it is tied in with the New World Order, and it is as filthy as it gets. So just as an example, consider maybe that some of the top elite people involved in the Red Cross might be using the money that's donated to help others to, I don't know. All right, I'm just going to tell you what I read today, that there's someone in the Red Cross who's leased a jet back to the Red Cross, and so they are collecting money from the Red Cross because they're leasing a jet to the Red Cross, but really they got the money for the jet from the Red Cross, and so they're making it look like it's real, and it's a bunch of crap. Anyway, I can't stand the Red Cross.
Just let me say one thing, though, Dean, because I don't know if you can paint them with a broad brush, because the Red Cross, they do some good work.
Yeah, they do.
I do not. I have issues with a lot of charitable organizations out there. Let me just say that. And there's good and bad in everything. So pointing out the bad hopefully helps us all get rid of that.
I can't stand the Red Cross, and I don't agree with Richie. I think they're a horrible
That's fine.
organization. I have a long history of hearing some of the crap they do, and I just can't stand it. I know they're a long arm of the United Nations and the international control grid. So let me just say this about Mr. Trump Goes Alone. This is a great article by Avram Gordimer. Trump goes it alone and leaves him in the dust. His presidency is a flop. Okay, he's quoting. He has not made even a single legislative accomplishment. His health care reform plan was knocked out 3 times. He has a really low approval rating, and he's getting nothing done. This is the message that the leftist mainstream media is feeding America, and most people eat it up with savor at no questions asked. Coupled with Donald Trump's personality, numerous White House personnel changes, and the ongoing Russia investigation, one would think that Trump is doomed, counting the days until his failed presidency crashes down with an impeachment or ends in a grave defeat at the hands of the Democrats less than 3.5 years down the road. But, alas, this very reasonable and seemingly proven and compelling prognostication, as the media presents it, is pure hogwash, and is so much else that is directed at the public in the name of truth. While it is so that Donald Trump has not succeeded in major legislation, the golden key to his presidency is the executive one. Executive actions and initiatives that lie within the executive jurisdiction of the president. It is here that the Trump presidency is smashing success in defiance of its innumerable detractors. Every president operates on 2 levels, the legislative and the executive, and most presidents do not easily succeed at both. Those presidents who push through sweeping legislation without sizable majorities for their parties in Congress were typically moderates who were wary of taking bold executive actions and whose accomplishments were thus largely limited to the legislation they promoted. In contrast, those presidents with bold personalities and gutsy plans were often not well received by the majority on Capitol Hill, and they instead got things done on the executive level. The rare exception is someone such as Ronald Reagan, who was blessed with a personality that earned him the reputation as the great communicator, and who was able to shine both on Capitol Hill and in the Oval Office. President Trump, whatever one thinks of him, has taken off flying on the executive level. As a result of aggressive deregulation, the economy is roaring, record low unemployment and record high stock market, thus an impressive rise in GDP, with new and major companies building and hiring. North Korea is being heavily sanctioned and dauntlessly confronted. Imagine if Obama were president now. Weakness is the last thing we need at this moment. Anyway, I don't need to go on too much into that, but
No, I wanted to comment on it because, in my view, and I didn't vote for President Trump, and I didn't vote for the other person either. However, I was trying to be nice. I just wanted to say the verdict is out on President Trump in my mind because he said he would restore the rule of law in America, and he has not taken steps yet to do that. Until he does, I'm holding out the verdict, my verdict anyway, on him. The rule of law has to be restored in this country or things are not going to get better at all. Corruption is corruption. If you leave it alone to operate and you don't bring the system around. A good example is the Judge Gloria Adolph Navarro out in Nevada. You're not using the Constitution. You're not allowing, she's not allowing testimony from, your victims, or not your victims, excuse me, your witnesses. Those are things that should have her removed from the court permanently. She's not acting in good behavior, in compliance with the Constitution, with the laws of the land. And she's a federal judge. She should be taken down and charged for treason. I'm sorry, but that's the way I see it.
I might have to agree with you, Richie.
I hope a lot of people do. It's true. We need the rule of law back in this country.
All right, for those of you who have been asleep for 50 years or just soaking up the mainstream media information, let me just tell you that in the 1940s and 50s, America, the Black Ops programs were heavily invested in weather modification, and in the 1970s, it was admitted under in the congressional record that we had the technology and the ability to steer hurricanes, steer them back in the 1970s. So let me just read this real quick. I don't have much time here, but Harvey and Irma, shock and awe. A weather warfare against the American Republic. New World Order cabal uses Harvey and Irma to promote global climate change scam. Those of us who understand the highly inauspicious aspects associated with a total solar eclipse, I don't know what that's about. Hold on. Given the state of the art of weather modification, climate engineers, and weather weaponization, it is now quite simple for the geoengineers to hijack a small fledgling storm brewing in the Atlantic or in the Gulf of Mexico and methodically intensify it into a massive, powerful superstorm. This is exactly what the geoengineers did during the hurricane season of 2005 with Hurricanes Katrina, Rita, and Wilma. That's not to say that all hurricanes are geoengineered. However, those that possess the tailgate signals of artificial manipulation are very easily to spot. This link contains incriminating satellite imagery that conclusively demonstrates the fabrication of the 2015 superstorm in Texas. That would be Harvey. So there's a link. It's called A Geoengineered Weather Event Using Chemtrail and HAARP. HAARP.
HAARP, I believe it is. You can look it up. It is for altering the weather.
Yep. So let me just say this last part. President Donald Trump has made many moves which have irked the New World Order globalist cabal. All of the presidential decisions that Trump has made this year, pulling the United States out of the Paris Agreement, is by far the most consequential for the New World Order folks. It is also one that has triggered the countless agents of deep state, from the East Coast intelligentsia to lawyer lobbyists inside the Beltway, from the sultans of Silicon Valley to the Hollywood moguls. Wealthy elites everywhere are up in arms. The UN and EU bureaucrats who concocted the agreement under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change are especially riled up. The fraudulently obtained Paris Agreement had been fastidiously pieced together after decades of political corruption and governmental coercion at the highest levels. Because this international accord uses the global climate change due to human-generated CO2 argument as the basis for its existence, the degree of scientific fraud necessary to support this bogus claim is unparalleled. I don't have a lot of time to get too far into that, but the idea that CO2 is somehow creating global warming is so stupid and so obviously wrong, because CO2 levels are at an all-time low in the history of our planet, and plants on the planet need CO2 to survive. So there is a greater growth of vegetation across the planet when there are higher levels of CO2. So,
How much time do we have left, Denny?
I'm going to guess we have about
Oh, I thought
20
you had
seconds.
time.
20 seconds.
All right, well, go to the Fully Informed Jury Association and the
hold
National
on.
Liberty Alliance.
I got 2 minutes and I got a caller. Let me take it, all right?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
All right. Is that on? Welcome to Inform New Hampshire. Can I help you?
Yeah, hi. My name's Ricky. Big fan of your show. Could you guys clarify your thoughts on the recent weather, the wildfires, the two hurricanes now? Is that connected perhaps to anything that Al Gore might have said during his movie a few years down the road? I just want to open that up for conversation. Do you think that we're having wildfires and floods and hurricanes because of what we've done to our environment over the years, or is just this a normal pattern of the earth? Enjoy your show. Thank you very much.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate the call. We'll answer off the line. So it's a great question. I haven't really gotten into it with the Al Gore part. I do know that some of the federal government just grounded the biggest firefighting planes that we have, which is an indicator that somebody wants those fires to burn. Because why, at this point in time, when there are huge fires burning out in LA, they're grounding those planes. But I do believe that most of the destruction, like the drought that we just had, 10-year to 12-year drought we had in California, I think that was modification as well. So that's just my thoughts on it. We got a lot of work to do to prove that, but that's certainly. Thank you for the question, though. I appreciate you calling in. All right. Thanks for watching us. We got to close it down.
That's it. Thank you.
Have a great week.
Share this.
Yep.